Hi, in today's video I'm going to show you how to get the Davici Resolve video editor installed on Nixos and a couple of fixes you need to do to get it working, because for me it wasn't working out of the box and I had to do a bit of investigation to actually get it to start up and work properly with my Nvidia graphics card. So if we come across to the Nixos wiki, you can see there's basically no information here. It just says install the Davici Resolve package and gives you a link to the Arch wiki. So first thing we need to do is, obviously I'm running Nixos and I'm using Home Manager here to install my packages. So all we need to do in Home Manager is add Davici Resolve and then run a Home Manager switch. And it's going to take a while to actually download everything, and it may look like it's hanging and not doing anything, but it will actually finish and install everything. And the good thing about this is it's a lot easier to get this installed than it is on Ubuntu, where what you have to do is you've got to go to the Davici Resolve site, like here. You've got to come to download, you've got to download the Linux version, you've got to sign up. And what it will do is it will download an installer for Linux, but the problem is that it's not a deb file or a package that you would normally install. It will basically, if you just run the installer, you won't be able to uninstall it properly. So you have to use a script called make resolve deb, which then takes the Davici Resolve installer and creates a deb file from it that you can actually install. And this process takes an hour or so to actually create the deb file. So it's going to take, you know, probably half an hour to download the thing and another hour to build it, and then you've got to install it, which then takes you know, some more time compared to Nixos. As I said, all we have to do is add Davici Resolve to our Home Manager, one Home Manager switch, you know, no signing up for anything, no manually downloading files, anything like that. But the problem is, when you start it, when I rebooted, there was no application launcher. So if I come in here, what you'll see is I have a desktop file that I've created for Davici Resolve. Now, by default, there actually wasn't one. So I was thinking, has it worked? Is it there? And I came across the terminal, ran Davici Resolve, and you can see we can start it on the command line like that, but that's not how you want to start it. And the other problem that I came across was when I started Davici Resolve, I was getting this error: your GPU is full, GPU cannot process image, error 999. I thought, oh great. So basically what was happening was all the image was green. You know, when you get that thing when a video can't be played because of you don't have the codec installed, that sort of thing. So I was like, oh, for God's sake, you know, so near but yet so far. So what happened is, what I did was create, first of all, my first step was to create a desktop entry file to actually launch Davici Resolve. And as I said, what I'm doing here is I'm running a Dell XPS 15 with an Nvidia graphics card. And what I found is you need to set this. This is the secret sauce to get it to work. In the exec line, we have env __ mv prime render offload equals 1 and __ glx vendor library name equals Nvidia, followed by Davici Resolve %u. And then what we've got is the type is an application, terminal false. I've just added a default terminal icon because I couldn't be asked to go and look for the Davici Resolve desktop logo. We set the startup notify true, the WM class and the MIME type so that it opens Davici Resolve projects properly. So once we do that, it will actually open and play. So what I'm going to do now, let's just quit this. So the other thing is, my first thought was to put the environmental variables, set them sort of on the command line. So let me just move this across here. So what I first did was put the, with system D, you have a, let me figure out where the location is again. I think it's .config. Environment.d, you can create a envars file in that directory and add environmental variables that will be used by applications that use system D. Problem is, if you do that, other applications won't work. So things like Alacrity won't open, the Alacrity terminal won't open, Firefox won't open. So we need to set those in the desktop file. And once we've done that, and come on, move back over here. There we go, Davici Resolve. And what I've done is I've imported Big Buck Bunny here. Originally what was happening was, as soon as I started up, Davici Resolve would say your GPU's full, GPU cannot process image, error 999. And what a lot of people were sort of recommending was you go to your preferences, memory and GPU, and this is how it is set up by default on NixOS. You don't need to change this. And what a lot of people were saying was, oh yeah, you need to untick the GPU mode and set it to OpenGL and all this kind of stuff. You don't. So let's just put this back to the beginning and show you it actually plays. We don't get any artifacts with the video, and the audio is playing. And it's not capturing the desktop audio for some reason. Sod's law, why is that? This may be a sort of conflict between OBS and Davici Resolve, that it's not actually capturing the audio, and there may be something else I need to do. I'm not sure why that is, but Sod's law, you know, in a demo something's bound to go wrong, but take my word for it, the audio was actually playing. So you can see here the video. Have I got the, yeah, no, that's all turned up. You can see the monitors going up and down. It's just for some reason, I guess what happens is with Davici Resolve and OBS that maybe they're fighting for the audio interface or something like that. I just wanted to show you that it is actually working. So what I'm going to do is actually just quit Davici Resolve there and come back across to this. So the steps that we need to do, first of all, we'll come into our Nix PKGs, home, and all we need to do, home, packages with packages, Davici Resolve. That's the first step. You run the Home Manager switch, you reboot, and you'll find there's no desktop entry. If you start it on the command line with Davici Resolve and an Nvidia graphics card, you're going to get the errors that I described. So what you need to do is create a davinci-resolve.desktop file that we're going to put in local share applications, davinci-resolve.desktop. And this is the format that we need to use. Desktop entry, name Davici Resolve, generic name. And again, this is the important bit. Exec, env, mv prime render offload equals 1, glx vendor library name equals Nvidia Davici Resolve. And again, you can set the icon here if you download, you know, find the icon somewhere. So what you want to do is add that, and once you've done these couple of steps, Davici Resolve will actually launch. Now, another note. What are we doing there? Let me just quit that. In the next, okay. So Davici Resolve on Linux, there are two versions. There's the free version and the studio version. If you're on macOS or Windows, you can import MP4 files with H.264 video and the AAC audio codec. On Linux, you can't because of licensing issues. When you buy a Mac or a Windows machine, you're actually paying to use H.264, the license on that machine. So that's why if you're running on Windows or Mac, you've got H.264 AAC support. On Linux, again, the free version has no support for H.264 video or AAC audio. If you pay £300, you can get the studio version, which does have support for the H.264 video codec, but not AAC audio. So you're not really gaining that much by buying the studio version. You're still going to have to convert your audio. So what you've got to do is actually convert your footage into a format that you can import into DaVinci Resolve. And in my case, what I use is dnxhd, and I convert the audio to PCM audio. So what I've got here is a script that I wrote, very simple. You just give it an in file and an out file, and it will use ffmpeg to transcode the video so that it can actually be imported into DaVinci Resolve. So this is the function down here. Let's just make this size a bit bigger so you can see it. So ffmpeg, hide banner, stats, vpanic. So what this does is it hides the banner. So normally when you run ffmpeg, it's going to say ffmpeg built with boom and list a page full of codecs and stuff. We use the hide banner option. We give it the in file. We set the codec video to dnxhd, the codec audio to PCM_S16LE. We specify the size, which in my case is going to be 1920 by 1080, and we then have the rate. I forget what this is, like the frame rate or something. I forget offhand. I write so many things. And this is an important one, the bit rate for the video. So we need to set this to 145 meg. Anything else and you'll get really pixelated video. It will look terrible. And finally, we set the pixel format to YUV 422p. Set it to create a move file. So what this is going to do is actually going to create a video file with a .mov extension with the dnxhd video and PCM audio. And what happens is this will increase your footage file size by so if you've got a 1 gig video, it's going to increase the file size to 10 gigs. So it increases the file size 10 times. So this is something you've got to be aware of. You've actually got to import, you've got to convert the footage to dnxhd before you can import it into DaVinci Resolve. When you export from DaVinci Resolve, you'll have to export as dnxhd again and then convert the footage back to H.264. There's no way around that. So you are going to need a bit of space, yeah. So what will happen is, say you got 1 gig of footage, you convert it to dnxhd, it becomes 10 gig of footage. When you export it, that's going to be another 10 gig. Okay, so that's just something to bear in mind. But there's absolutely no way around that. So those are the things that we need to actually do to get this. 1, to actually get it working, and 2, to actually get the footage in and out. But it's much less work than actually doing this on Ubuntu. I've done sort of videos on this, so let me just come out and go to DaVinci Resolve. So I actually did a video on this. On Ubuntu, what you have to do is you've got to install fake root and X, whatever it's called. You've got to install the Nvidia CUDA toolkit, OCL, ICD, OpenCL, Dev. Then what you've got to do is you've actually got to download DaVinci Resolve, which is several gig from the DaVinci Resolve website. And again, you have to sign up for that. You've got to give an email and then it'll let you download it. And that's going to give you a zip file. You unzip that, and then what you've got to do is you've got to use a script called make resolve deb, and you run this make resolve deb file with the Davici Resolve linux.run file, and it's going to chunt away for about an hour or so, and then finally create a deb file, and then you can run sudo dpkgi davinci-resolve.deb, and then that's going to take, you know, another, I can't remember if it's like half an hour, another hour to actually do. So the process to install Davinci Resolve on Ubuntu is an absolute pain, because every time there's a new version, you've got to go and manually download it. So that's all for now.